The first film of 1996 to smash the $200 million mark. The best May non-holiday opening weekend ever. A roof-ripping, cow-tossing, silo-pulverizing e-ticket. Twister is hitting home for just $24.98.
If you grew up with this film, you're aware of its nostalgic pull and the horrific tornado nightmares that surely ensued after its viewing. Sure, Twister has its moments that make you cringe, and yet the film is also a complete joyride that has somehow managed to withstand the test of time, even getting a flashy new remake.
Nope.
A sequel? No, I guess standalone film. Well, that clearly winks at what makes this 1996 classic so great.
We got twins! Twins!
Okay, we got sisters.
And look, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's the greatest film of all time.
Wow, it is great. What is it?
There's definitely some questionable screenwriting going on with lines like this.
You've never seen it miss this house and miss that house and come after you.
Which you have to give Helen Hunt some credit for being able to deliver. But with that also comes endlessly quotable moments like this.
Cow. I gotta go, Julia. We got cows.
And I mean the cast. The cast of Twister is truly one of the elements that makes this movie special.
We were bonded together. We tied ourselves to the saddle horn and we said, Wizard, take us to Oz. And Jan, believe me, he took us on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
From Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt to a pre-Conheads Alan Ruck.
Roll the maps.
And Harry Elwes as rival storm chaser Jonas.
Jonas, son of a bitch.
We even get an early Todd Field appearance.
Okay, boss lady, hold your horses.
I was very lucky that Jan de Bont asked me to do that. I actually had been up for Phil Hoffman's part.
Oh, wow.
And then when Phil got in, Jan had offered me this other part, Belzer, and I was a little chapped about it because I really wanted the Dusty part. But when I saw that I got to sing Oklahoma, I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
And of course, who could forget the legendary Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty?
Dusty, why don't you explain to Melissa why you are the way you are?
I think there are some really important factors beyond Twister's endlessly quotable lines and outlandish, veering on cheesy moments that make this an important movie. And in 1995, it was certainly the type of film countless directors wanted to be attached to.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4. First recorded dialogue, underwater, on film, for a theatrical motion picture in the history of the world.
From names like James Cameron and Tim Burton to Robert Zemeckis and John Badham, there was no shortage of candidates to helm this film. But executive producer Steven Spielberg had his eye on one director in particular.
Which way?
Get on the shoulder.
After the success of Speed, cinematographer turned director Jan de Bont appeared to be the perfect person to lead the production of this disaster epic.
People tend to say that Speed was a very fast-moving picture.
Bang, 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 bang!
Oh, fuck, you fell off. Are you okay? I think this one is a little quicker.
The catch? The film still didn't have a completed script to pitch to studios for funding. The even bigger catch? From the title alone, it was clear this movie was going to require extensive effects work. Now in 2024, making a visual effects-laden film about tornadoes seems easy. Well, maybe not easy, but certainly more realistic than it did in 1995, when the effects team didn't even have viable reference footage of a tornado.
It was tricky for us to make it not move too fast and give it, big size like that. But the rotation speed was very important. We had a lot of video reference. We didn't have anything at all on film.
Obviously, we looked at tons of reference, but it was all home video. There were so many home videos of people who were just like, oh, it's happening, but the quality wasn't there.
The pitch to studios then was not a script, but a proof of concept created by none other than ILM. The company behind the revolutionary effects sequences in the Star Wars films, the detailed dinosaurs of Jurassic Park, and the photorealistic fur and texture of the animals in Jumanji.
Judy, someone's in here.
Just to name a few. But constructing the undefined mass of spinning particles that makes up a tornado, well, that required innovation. Creative director Dennis Muren had been working on another Amblin production with visual effects supervisor Stefan Fangmeyer when tasked with creating test footage to prove this film could even be made.
And Steven Spielberg had approached Dennis Muren to do a test for Twister.
After assembling a team that included digital particles expert Habib Zagarpour, the group created a video not only convincing enough to ensure Twister got made, but so loved by producers, it made it into the film's trailer.
It was so dynamic that people wanted to use it for the trailer and to market the movie.
But Twister still lacked a very important piece of the filmmaking puzzle, a completed script. Written by Michael Crichton and then-wife Anne-Marie Martin, the initial script was laid out like a screwball comedy, His Girl Friday to be exact.
Well, what can I do for you?
Well, would you mind if I sat down?
There's been a lamp burning in the window for you, honey. Here.
Oh, I jumped out that window a long time ago, Olga.
But instead of Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell duking it out in a newsroom, this lover's quarrel would take place across the action-packed, tornado-laden backdrop of Oklahoma.
Don't do this.
Okay, I'm making extremely civilized conversation here. You're biting my head off.
This presented a problem, because Twister was not a film where the flashy action sequences were mere side elements to the main dialogue.
Here we go.
No, the weather phenomena at the heart of this film was a central character in and of itself, and as such, de Bont wanted these two elements to be inextricably linked. These were not going to be sit-down dialogue scenes.
I knew reading the script it wasn't going to be, like a easy picnic of a shoot.
When you'd read the script, it was like, your line, my line, your line, run, run, almost get killed. Your line, my line, run, 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 almost get killed again.
Passing through the hands of Steve Zalian, Joss Whedon, and Jeff Nathanson, Twister's script endured multiple grueling rewrites well past pre-production and into the first 2 weeks of filming. But this was far from the only problem that plagued this film.
When we started, which was the Twister season, we had such bad weather. We had 4 bulldozers and tractors only because every car got stuck in the mud.
This, coupled with some personality clashes between cinematographer Don Burgess and de Bont, led Burgess and crew to leave the project 5.5 weeks into filming.
We went through 2 shooting crews. The first shooting crew couldn't take it, so they all went home. And that was political and everything else.
Luckily, this departure saw the retreat of some of the storms that plagued the production. Unluckily, the arrival of new cinematographer Jack Green also ushered in a record-breaking heat wave.
The heat index went through the roof, and people were their tongues were swelling up, and animals were dropping dead. And
that was hot too.
On the road to the set, there was a dead cow.
And how do you film one of the biggest box office disaster films of 1996 without the weather so befitting of its title, might you ask? Well, you need lights. You need a lot of lights.
Is it true that, when y'all shot that, it was sunny the whole time?
It is true. The poor director.
No, but the thing is that normally when you make movies, you want to have sunny weather, It's hardly ever that you want bad weather. We really needed bad weather. We really, needed dark skies.
In order for the lighting to match the stormy weather the film demanded, Green had to put a lot of light on the actors. This allowed him to darken the entire image either by stopping down his lens during filming or pulling the film down in post. For close-ups, Green relied on 12K HMIs set fairly close to the actors. And this is where the injuries began.
I think at some point they pumped so much light into the car to see the actors. I think they actually burned Hans Rettner or somebody says, and if you watch the film and the interior car stuff, they're kind of squinting a lot because there was so much light coming in.
the HMIs had so much ultraviolet, and we realized we were just getting too much exposure. We were actually, sunburning your eyes.
And if you thought recreating the stormy sky seemed complex, generating the violent debris-filled winds proved taxing as well. But special effects supervisor John Fraser had a creative solution.
And this is where, for the first time, Helen and Bill are going to experience the wind machines.
The wind machine that they had was a 707 jet motor.
We went out to Mojave Airport, and we just started turning on jets until we found one I liked.
But generating the massive amounts of debris and hail Twister required was not pain-free either.
When you're doing a movie like Twister, debris is what it's all about.
From eye injuries and infections.
There was so much debris flying that I think one of them got an eye infection.
Yeah, it was pretty violent. I think with the infections, everybody there got some kind of an infection of something.
To scrapes and bruises from pelting hail.
Okay, we got hail.
Hail. We got hail.
The hail was very painful.
It was a painful situation for the actors because ice is painful when and those machines we had on the back of the truck. So as Bill comes out, he really gets hit hard by this,
This is pretty real. I don't have to do a lot of acting in this movie. They're raining basically chipped ice on me. They're throwing debris. Although it's lightweight stuff, it still hits, it still hurts.
Filming in massive 7-foot-tall cornfields had a unique set of challenges as well.
Where are they? I can't see them.
you couldn't see anything. And it was interesting because when we shot that stuff on location, sometimes the driver would get lost. And this was before GPS or anything. So it was like, how do I get out of this maze?
But I remember you guys got lost in that cornfield a couple of times.
I was driving and we could not get out. It was so funny. And we had to climb on the very top on somebody's shoulder to set out. And this is the stunt where Helen got injured.
Helen got hurt. She took her hand off the door she was holding to kind of readjust her position. And that door just came and just pinched her head in the door. And that was check, please, for that day.
But amongst all the stories of injuries and setbacks on the set, I think what is perhaps most notable about a film like Twister is the way in which the production gave equal importance to the use of both practical and visual effects.
You know, you can blow things up practically. You can cause an explosion or implosion, this and that. But the rotational force of a tornado is just incredibly difficult to simulate in any sort of physical manner.
Take a scene like this.
What is that? One of the most important things in the movie is to keep the combination of physical effects and visual effects in scale so that one doesn't jump out from the other.
It's an effects-heavy sequence that is pretty much impossible to pull off completely practical.
When it comes out of the tornado and scrapes towards them, it was a CGI truck. But then later on, of course, once it's gotten over them, it turn around and drive back and it falls out of the sky and explodes. That was a real explosion.
The visual effects work so well because of the way they are integrated with the practical effects, shaky camera work, skillful production design and art direction. Oh, and let's not forget about the impressive stunt work. Yes, that truck is actually being driven towards a falling tanker and into a real explosion. It's ultimately the marriage of all these elements working together that make this scene better and more believable overall.
Son of a bitch! Joe! Bill, did you see that explosion?
We saw it.
Twister was part of a larger moment in time where the conversation wasn't centered around digital versus practical, but how amazing it was when those tools could work together. You had filmmakers like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and James Cameron not only acknowledging their use, but celebrating them.
And this technology really kind of, changed my movie forever.
That proved to be very compelling imagery that people remembered indelibly from that movie.
What was special about Terminator 2 was this was the first time we were going to marry live-action puppeted effects with digital effects.
A stark contrast to today's climate, where any discussion on visual effects or CG seems to be more about how they weren't used than how they were.
Because if we're going to do it, we're going to fly in the F-18s.
Some studios even blocking discussions on a film's use of VFX or, just hiding it altogether. But Twister was a celebration of the synergistic way effects could be used. And how else would you pull off a scene like this?
I had seen some footage of it, and, obviously you cannot do that for real.
When it actually sort of tumbles across and then just sort of lands smack on the road, that is, of course, computer animated because there's no rig that you could use, even a huge crane or whatever, without immediately destroying the house.
Utilizing computer animation allowed the team to effortlessly tumble a house onto a road, blocking Bill and Joe's escape. This was further enhanced by painstakingly animating every broken board, hanging door, bit of debris, and breaking window the scene required. I highly recommend checking out visual effects artist Stu Mashowitz's post on this scene, linked in the description box, for a much better breakdown on how these effects were done. A practical house was then used for the truck to drive into, with 6 separate sets being utilized for the demolition of its interior, one even being located on the curved corner of a racetrack to give the illusion that the house was spinning. And the combination of all this made for a scene that, in 1996, was truly mind-blowing. But make no mistake, a big reason why Twister and the slew of disaster films that would come after it were able to be made was because of the ingenuity of the visual effects team behind these films, without which many would have been impossible.
All those scripts, starting with Twister, if those guys didn't come up with that tornado, that movie wasn't going to get made.
Unlike a creature or dinosaur with a hard surface and defined edges, the spinning mass of dust and debris that comprises a tornado required particles, millions of particles. CG was still in its infancy, so this required innovation. The team at ILM was faced with adapting the tools available to them at the time and implementing them in completely new ways, sometimes even inventing new software in the process. This saw them creating over 300 effect shots.
Okay, we got sisters.
from massive semi-transparent tornadoes to the warping pieces of barn debris, and yes, even a cow.
None of us would have ever thought that would be the most popular thing out of the movie. It was kind of ironic.
Cow.
Before giving these items the movement, texture, shading, and lighting that was necessary to make them feel real. But their work certainly didn't stop here. de Bont wanted Twister to have a documentary feel, to be shot on location, and most importantly, to largely be shot handheld.
The most difficult thing in those days is what people don't remember, is that originally when you make a movie with visual effects in those days, you put the camera on a tripod, you lock it off, or you make very little pans. Well, there's one thing we're going to have to change. This camera will never be on a tripod because, you cannot get a sense of danger and action and incredible big changes if I cannot put this camera on my shoulder.
This meant foregoing the use of green or blue screen that would have been typical for a film of this scale, making all the digital compositing work even more tedious.
We really didn't do any blue screen for the movie at all. So all the things where we had to put the tornadoes behind the running people, it kind of comes down to digital paint work where you kind of rotoscope. It's very hard work, but I think it was absolutely necessary to make this film seem real, that you really were there.
From match movers recreating de Bont's panning, tracking, and shaky camera work.
This is a big, look at this pan, yeah.
Yeah, those things are a little difficult.
No, but it was fine. I mean, you just track with it.
To painstakingly roto and keying around the actors, trees, bushes, and cornfields frame by frame. Oh, and the skies. Let's not forget about the extensive amount of sky replacements in this film.
Yeah, this again, it was totally blue sky that we were fighting like crazy.
Relying on storm footage captured by the second unit production team, the VFX department had the laborious task of replacing the sunny, cloudless skies that haunted Twister's production with the black swirling clouds and ominous green skies the film demanded. Many of these shots fit seamlessly into the film, but some shots proved more arduous than others.
And it's a little tricky.
And windblown hair, trees, and explosions set against these stormy backdrops certainly didn't make matters easier.
The hair, look at his hair, God. Tricky with her dark hair.
This is where...
the hair was tricky on this.
The hair was tricky. That was kind of hard to put that explosion in front of that effect.
And if you look at the shot in the trench, and you look at that Jeep, once we're under that bridge, looking out, you see all that light on the side of the Jeep. Now that I see it, it's like, I wish we could have suppressed that a little bit. Yeah. But these were the days where this was all shot on film, and there was no digital DI. So, the only thing we could do in our compositing, which we tried, is to really sort of take that sunny weather out as much as possible. But it was very limited compared to what you can do these days in a digital post scenario.
Most changes to the overall look of a film during this period were done photochemically. The technology that allows for the digital grading process that is typical of films today was simply not an option in 1995. For Twister, there was no DI, programs like Nuke or After Effects did not exist, and there was certainly no 3D tracking software for all the panning, tracking, and shaky handheld camera work in this film. Yet even with all these challenges, you are still left with some incredibly impressive shots, where with a pan of the camera, the real sky blends seamlessly into the replacement sky and CG tornado.
We got it, we see it!
All through a rain-smattered windshield, no less. And it is such ingenious effects work that is responsible for these memorable moments that stick with you long after the film's credits roll.
The fun thing with the screen is that the movie still projects on the dirt particles.
The movie's still going and the screen's coming apart.
Twister was one of a series of films that marked an innovative shift not only for the VFX team at ILM, but also to the pipelines through which these types of films were being made. Films that would have been largely impossible without the ingenuity of both the special and visual effects teams behind Twister.
These movies would still be on the shelf if it wasn't for CGI.
From the parting of the Red Sea and the Prince of Egypt,
all the particles and, shader, animation, all that stuff we had learned working with Habib and Stefan and the crew came in really handy.
To the massive wall of waves and mist in The Perfect Storm.
We got to use the same particle rendering as Twister for all the mist and particles, but that, it was like continuing, at least rendering-wise, that technology from Twister.
And yes, while many of these films would continue the trend of putting style before substance, it still was a pretty exciting time for movies and the power of discovering exactly what visual effects teams were capable of.
Every show that you do, you're presented with some sort of new problem that needs to be solved. And once that problem is solved, it's available to all the other shows that follow.
We set the bar up to a new level, and Jurassic Park moved it, and then, Death Becomes Her did.
Meryl with her head twisted backwards was difficult because it had never been done, and whenever you do something that's never been done, you're never sure if it's going to work.
We've done a lot of sort of stylized things like Creatures of the Water or made out of this liquid metal like in Terminator 2. But the big question is, could we make something come to life? Because we never made living creatures.
We had to solve a lot of technical problems, like trying to make our hair match the animatronic lion. It's about 1.5 million hairs or something like that. So all those things have to work together, and that was a big technical problem.
And then after that, I think it started to branch out, and so many people were trying so many new things at that point that it really just exploded.
What CGI has done is all these scripts, if it wasn't for CGI, they would all still be on the shelf.
Not any easier, by the way, just faster.